Okay, so I want to talk about a few subjects in this video. I want to talk about last night's debate on CNN. I want to talk about the Warren versus Bernie controversy with if a woman could be elected president. And I briefly want to touch on a couple of the candidates that dropped out. Recently, over the past week, Marianne Williamson dropped out of the presidential race along with Cory Booker, and they joined a list of others because there was about what 25 30 people that decided to run in the primary. Some of them worth talking about, some of them is not, like Governor Bullock from Montana. He ran, dropped out. Mayor de Blasio ran for like, I think, 2.5 seconds, then dropped out. Congressman Swalwell. So there's been a bunch of people that ran and dropped out. Some of the more notable people being Kamala Harris, and she was worth talking about because a lot of people thought that she had a great chance of winning the nomination, but her record as Attorney General in California proved to be her downfall. She have been a decent senator so far. I mean, she only been a senator since what 2017, so she haven't been a senator that long, but during her brief time in the Senate, I feel like she have done a pretty good job, especially in the hearings, questioning nominees. That seemed to be her strength because she was a prosecutor. But her campaign just could never really take that momentum she had from the first debate and turn it into something bigger, partly because of her record as AG in California. She had a few good ideas. She brought a housing proposal, which was decent, to address some of the historical redlining issues. She had a version of UBI, but it wasn't really UBI. It wasn't like Andrew Yang is proposing, but it was something where families could get anywhere, I think, from $200 to $500 in tax credits. It was a decent proposal that was worth looking at. And when these candidates dropped out, what I like to do, I like to look at their proposals or some of their good proposals and keep that energy going. Because for me, it's not about personality. I don't know none of these people personally, so I could care less about their ambition. For me, it's all about the policy. Is this policy going to better my life? Is it going to better my family life? Is it going to better the majority of people in America lives? That's what I look at. That's it. I'm not about call to personality. I'm not about, oh, I hope this person make it for this, for some symbolism. None of that. I don't care about none of that. For me, it's all about the policy. Now, for Marianne Williamson, a lot of people look at her as what they call what a kook, somebody that's not wasn't serious, somebody that might have just been trying to sell some books, Oprah friend, just a non-serious individual overall. I know some people really didn't like her because it was a controversy about whether she was an anti-vaxxer and all that. But for me, I'm glad she ran because she was the only candidate to really bring forth a discussion on reparations. Beto O'Rourke brought the conversation up a few times, but Marianne Williamson was the only one that had a specific proposal on reparations. I thought the proposal could have been a little bit better, but at least it was a starting point. For me, the way I look at policies is not the end point, it's negotiations. So I appreciated that she even had a policy to begin with, personally. So shout out for her for that. The rest of her campaign wasn't really that wasn't really memorable. I don't know. I sound like Joe Biden right there, stuttering over my words, right? But there's nothing really else to remember about her campaign but the discussion on reparations and Cory Booker. Now, his campaign was interesting and not interesting. It wasn't interesting because he never gained any type of momentum at all. I don't think he ever got beyond what 2 or 3% in the polls. In a lot of the polls, he was stuck at 1%. But it was interesting because a lot of people thought he would do a much better in this race, much better. It just didn't happen, and I don't know. I think there's a number of reasons for that. One of the reasons is he really was an enemy to the progressive base, especially because of what he did with the Bernie Sanders bill, the farmer bill with importing um, medications from Canada. And a lot of people thought he was bought, he was a corporate sellout. And people go all the way back to 2012 when he kind of defended Mitt Romney and Bain Capital in the middle of the 2012 election when he was running against Barack Obama. So there's a lot of reasons not to like Cory Booker. His record as mayor of Newark, so. A lot of people feel like he could have did more, especially with the water crisis that just happened. Even though he wasn't mayor when this came out, but a lot of people thought he could have did more as mayor of Newark as well. So I understand there is a lot of reasons not to like him, and he made some mistakes. One of his biggest mistakes is he had a key policy proposal. His policy proposal of baby bonds. Now, he didn't create the policy. It was initially thought about by a professor by the name of Derek Hamilton. He had this idea for a few years now, and it's kind of gaining steam, but it's haven't been talked about in the mainstream. Every debate, he should have been hammering baby bonds hardcore, hardcore. Like he should have been. That sounded kind of dirty, right? It kind of sound like a porn joke. Scratch that. He basically should have talked about it as much as Andrew Yang talked about UBI, right? Because you notice when Andrew Yang talked, no matter what the question is, somehow he related back to UBI. Bernie Sanders, when he talked, somehow he always related back to either the millionaires or billionaires, Medicare for all, or climate change, one of his key proposals, right? Elizabeth Warren, a lot of times when she asked the question, somehow she related back to her wealth tax, right? That is what they're known for. They have a brand. Cory Booker did not have a brand, and he could have because he was the only character. He was the only candidate, to my knowledge, that was proposing baby bonds, which is actually a great proposal. Now, what is baby bonds? I'm not going to get into the whole policy discussions here. I think I might make a separate video about that. But baby bonds, just a brief outline what it is. It's basically like a trust. So every baby that's born in the United States will get a trust by the federal government, somewhere averaging between $20,000. For the poorest families, by the time the child reaches 18, it can reach up to $60,000. It will accrue interest. So that's how it will work. And the idea is because, especially, you know, black people with the lack of wealth, with the wealth that was taken away from us, it's a policy that's supposed to help close the race gap and the wealth gap overall with all Americans. It's a universal policy. It's not reparations. And my speculation is one of the reasons that Cory Booker might embrace this policy is to have something to save somebody asking about reparations because it's a big push by certain members of the black community to push for reparations, which we should because reparations is deserved. I'm not going to get into that now, but it definitely is deserved. We can get into that later. But that might have been the reason he embraced it. But regardless, it's a great policy. He should have been pushing it. He should have been pushing it. Every question, he should have answered the question, then somehow bring it back to baby bonds like the other candidates do with their key proposals. And he just did not do that. A lot of people don't even know he supported baby bonds. Most people still don't even know what baby bonds is. And that's a poor job on his part because, like I said, it could have been a brand. It could have been something he stood for, and it's a great policy. For me, it doesn't replace reparations, but I can get behind it because I think it would help everybody. And if you want to have it part of a reparation package, you could do certain stuff like that. Like for example, for a set period of time, and this is not concrete, but let's just say, I don't know, maybe 5, 10 years, people of African descent, or what some people call ADOS, might get a certain amount of baby bonds, a little bit higher percentage. You could do something like that, or let's just say UBI with Andrew Yang. That's his main policy. A lot of people might have heard that he won a policy where the U.S. government, the federal government, would give $1,000 a month to every adult over the age of 18. It could be a policy maybe for the first year only go to descendants of slaves for the first year and then go to everybody else. I'm willing to listen to proposals like that. Maybe not everybody else's, but for me, I am willing to do that. But regardless, Cory Booker, I think, missed some opportunities with branding himself and to really push forward an important policy. And one more thing I want to speak about with that. I got some criticism for progressive commentators, especially on the YouTube space, and the mainstream media. I'm always on the mainstream media, but with the progressive base, right? Sometimes they don't give good ideas the space it need or even talk about them because it comes from somebody that they dislike. I see that often because baby bonds is a great idea. If Bernie Sanders would have proposed baby bonds, right? These progressive outlets will be talking about it all the time, how grave a policy it is. But because it comes from somebody like Cory Booker, who, yes, I do agree, is a centrist and might even be a corporatist, you don't discuss it. For me, it's not about the person, it's always about the policy. So, yes, even if it comes from somebody I hate, like Donald Trump, I cannot stand him. If he ever comes up with a good policy, which is not too often, but if he ever do come up with a good policy and I agree with it, I'm not going to oppose it just because it's Donald Trump. For example, let's just say, I don't know, Donald Trump fall and hit his head all of a sudden and say, man, I support Medicare for all now. Am I going to not support it because I hate this man, I hate this individual, which I do, but I do like the policy. So we should always focus on policy and the outcome. Like what will get us closer to the outcome we desire. That should be the focus. Again, shouldn't be individual. Now, a few thoughts on last night's debates. I took down a few notes. These are sporadic notes, so bear with me. The first question I thought was really good, and most of these debates I didn't have a lot of criticisms with. But the first part of this debate I thought was decent because the first question was actually a really good one. First question was they asked the candidates why do they think they the best prepared to be commander in chief out of everybody on stage. And Bernie Sanders had a good answer. He highlighted his vote on the Iraq War, that he voted against the Iraq War, which is a great strategy politically, and it was the right decision. It's a great strategy politically because it puts a lot of pressure on Joe Biden to explain his Iraq War vote. And, he having his surrogates, John Kerry tried to defend his vote, which John Kerry voted for the war too, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. Joe Biden was asked the same question, and he just stumbled. Why did he stumble? Because there's really no good answer to why you voted for the Iraq War. Only thing you can do is apologize because objectively, unless you a delusional Kool-Aid drinker, that was the wrong decision. That was absolutely the wrong decision. So there's no getting around that. So good answer by Bernie. Biden stumbled on that question. I thought Elizabeth Warren had a pretty good answer on that. And to follow up on the question of the commander in chief questions, they start asking, would you bring combat troops home from Iraq in the Middle East? Elizabeth Warren stated that she would bring combat troops home, and it was a little debate about that. Biden was saying how he would leave special operations. I think most of the other candidates, besides Bernie, I'm not even sure if Bernie was asked this particular question, stated that they would leave combat troops in Iraq. in the Middle East in general. And I understand the point. The point is, okay, when troops left Iraq at the end of 2011, that, it was a vacuum and ISIS came about. My thing is this: there's always going to be an ISIS. Once you defeat ISIS, it's going to be a new group by another name that come up. What is the end game? Are we just going to be there indefinitely, forever and ever and ever, while we got so many problems at home? So I'm for a complete pullout of the Middle East. Yes, I am. I know it's going to be chaos, but listen, we got a ton of problems here. We have infrastructure problems. Our country is falling apart. We have healthcare problems. Not everybody in this country have healthcare. Student loans out the ass. So we have so many different problems here. Not to mention that we've been in the Middle East for decades on end, and the situation have not gotten better. As a matter of fact, in a lot of situations, we made things worse. So if you actually had a clear victory in mind, what it would look like, then that'll be different. Then I can say, okay, I see where you're going. But to me, it just seems like they want troops there no matter what. Defense contractors get paid, so they'll be happy. Most of these politicians, most of their families don't have to fight in these wars, so they happy. And it's the people that really suffer. And you claim that we don't have money for so many different so many different issues and policies, while we wasting money in the Middle East for something that's not even making us safer. So that's my position of it on it. Like, yes, I'm for a complete pullout. So I like Elizabeth Warren answer there, and I think Elizabeth Warren overall had a sharp night, especially on foreign policy, which in my personal opinion, always been her weakness. But she did better than I ever seen her do with issues when it comes to foreign policy. Um, so Wolf Blitzer asked Biden another good question. Basically, he asked Biden about the Obama administration drone strikes and how is that different than what Trump did. And Biden said it was different, um, because basically they didn't assassinate a government leader, but you did assassinate a lot of people, and you didn't go through Congress to do these drone strikes. My position is yes, it's slightly different than what Trump did, but the point stand. I think for drone strikes, for assassination of a foreign leader like that dumb shit that Trump just did, yes, it should all go through Congress. Because how is bombing a country not declaring war? You bombing a country. I know they'll say, well, you might have had permission from certain government officials, but bombing is war. Yes, you're using the War Powers Acts to do all these different drone strikes in all these different countries and using it as an excuse to be in places that a lot of Americans don't even know that we are in. And some people in Congress don't even know that we in. Yes, it should go through Congress. That's my point of view on that. So that was actually a good question by CNN and Wolf Blitzer. Now, a bad question. Um, Moderator asks, would you allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon? Now, the reason why this is a bad question, because of course every candidate said, no, I would not allow them to get a nuclear weapon. Or what? The question should be this: are you willing to go to war to stop them from getting nuclear weapons? Are you willing to send ground troops to stop them from getting nuclear weapons? That should be the question. Not whether um, are you going to allow them to get them, because what do that mean? Of course, politicians are going to find the easiest way out of that question. Just simple, no. I'm going to do diplomacy. With diplomacy don't work. Are you willing to go to war? My answer would be no, I'm not. We shouldn't go to war if they get a nuclear weapon. Do I want them to have nuclear weapons? No. I wish no country did. I wish nuclear weapons did not exist, period. I wish we didn't have weapons that can destroy the entire world. It doesn't make sense. So I don't want any more countries getting a nuclear weapon. And I think we should do everything that's possible to stop countries from getting nuclear weapons. And like I said, I wish we didn't have them. But we was on that path. The Iran nuclear deal helped in that objective. It helped to stop Iran nuclear program. But of course, dumb fucking office got rid of the deal because it was Obama's deal. And he wanted a new deal. The stuff that he's talking about was already in the deal. And the media gets on my nerve with this too because they just put out stuff, no fact checking. When Trump say that we gave Iran billions of dollars, we didn't give them billions of dollars. What they did, they lifted certain sanctions and they let Iran get access to their own money. It didn't come from the U.S. Treasury. The U.S. didn't give them the money. So it's an outright distortion, it's an outright lie that the media let go, partly because they don't like Iran. And you got a lot of former generals, you got a lot of people with the CFR, like the president of the CFR was on Morning Joe today, like Richard Haas or whatever his name is, right? Like he's a neutral party. He's a Republican. He was in the Bush administration. He took over the CFR in 2003, right in the middle of the Iraq War or the beginnings of the Iraq War. So this is not a neutral party. And of course, he was didn't like nobody answers on foreign policy. Of course, you didn't, because war hawk about trade deals, and the media just does a poor job in general with educating the public. And also, when they have these so-called experts, they do a poor job of explaining what these people's backgrounds are. But another good question nonetheless by CNN on this one, so I give them credit. Bernie, and like I said, these are sporadic notes. Bernie have a bad habit of going to subject sometimes when he asks the question and not relating the issue to the question in a fluid manner. That's just something that I notice. I know some people will disagree, especially like some of his hardcore supporters, but that's just the observation from me. I noticed that Warren did a better job this debate than she did last debate because I thought Warren was horrible in the last debate. Matter of fact, her last few debates I thought she was terrible, but she did a very good job this time of getting to the point. Last debate, she would talk too long without a central point. I thought she was sharper. I thought she was more direct this debate, which was good. When they asked, Bernie about the accusation that Elizabeth Warren said that he thought that a woman couldn't get elected president. I don't really care about this issue. I know some people do, but I am going to touch on it briefly. To me, it's inconsequential whether he said it or not. To me, this is a fake controversy. Um, I think people get stuck on the wrong issue. I see a lot of Bernie supporters up in arms like Bernie would never say that. I say we never know what people would say behind closed doors. Because people say all sorts of stuff in private that they wouldn't say in public. Sometimes their position in private will outright contradict what they say in public. So I'm not saying that he did say it. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I also wouldn't be surprised if Elizabeth Warren was outright lying about it. Because again, I don't know these people. You never know what people would do, especially because she's been falling behind in the polls. It could be a misunderstanding where he says something like a woman might have a harder time winning because of the sexism in this country and what Trump is going to do. And maybe the signals was crossed and she took that as he's saying that a woman couldn't win when he didn't say that. That might have happened too. I don't know. Speculation. Like, none of us will really know except for Bernie and Elizabeth Warren. And they might not even know because they might have interpreted the conversation two different ways. Possibility. But for me, that is not the point, and that's not the point we should be hung up on. To me, it was a bad move by Elizabeth Warren. I'll tell you why. It shows a lack of character because if we friends and we having a private conversation, unless you say something super outrageous that will end our friendship, I'm not going to make that public. And if you were so outraged by it, this meeting was like a year ago. You should have brought it up then. Why do you bring it up now and you was buddy with him for months on end? You know, you've been buddy with him for almost a year. And it didn't seem like you was bothered by it then. Why bring it up now? It seems like you trying to throw a grenade in the situation, right? That's what it seemed like to me. So that's where I'm focusing on, not whether it was right or wrong. Or no, excuse me, not whether Bernie said it or didn't, but whether it was right or wrong. And to me, it was just wrong to do so. It was wrong to do so, and I don't like the fact that she did it, especially because, especially because it brings division within the progressive base. And there's already been that because I get on Bernie Sanders supporters all the time because I think for months on end, a lot of his supporters been pushing outright lies and distortions of Elizabeth Warren record. For example, people would say that she supported Hillary Clinton, that she endorsed Hillary Clinton. Yes, but that's a distortion. She did not endorse Hillary Clinton during the primaries. She endorsed Hillary Clinton after the primaries was over and it was clear that she had the nomination. The way some Bernie supporters make it seem is like she endorsed Hillary Clinton during the primaries. Now, if you want to criticize her for not endorsing Bernie Sanders during the primary when they were closer in policy than her and Hillary, okay, that's your prerogative. You're free to do that. But don't make it seem like she endorsed her during the primaries, which I see a lot of Bernie supporters doing. And it's not right. They also want to downplay her role with the Consumer Financial Bureau, her predicting the housing bubble and housing crisis years before it happened, her work in the Obama administration fighting Timothy Geithner. So she does have, they make it seem like she's a straight up corporatist, which is not right, which get on my nerves. But, you know, and like I said, I think I can be objective about these situations because, like I said, I'm only about policies. I don't care about candidates themselves, and whatever candidate I vote for is going to be the candidate that I most agree with policy. But yeah, so it's unfortunate that any time was spent on that. I think both of them basically did the best they could with the situation. I think it might hurt both of them. I think Bernie did the best he could with his initial answer. I think Elizabeth Warren did the best she could out of the situation, flipping it, saying how all the men lost like 10 elections combined. Her and Amy Klobuchar was the only one that won all their elections. Some people like that moment. I mean, it got a big round of applause, so I think she did the best she could with that situation. Okay, so the situation with, like, when Warren said that nobody have beaten an incumbent Republican in 30 years besides her. I'm like, okay, you was in Massachusetts. It doesn't really, like, and then her and Bernie start going back and forth about the issue that nobody cares about. Don't care about that issue at all. I don't think anybody care about that issue. So that was kind of weird and a waste of time. One thing that was surprising, I actually thought Tom Steyer did a good job. Like, I don't believe he would push for a lot of things that he's saying because I have major trust issues with him. But a lot of what he's saying, I agree with. I thought he made a good point about the commander in chief argument when he said that like President Obama and Barbara Lee didn't support the Iraq War, and they wasn't in the military, and like Barack Obama didn't have a lot of federal government experience. He had zero at the time where he opposed the Iraq War. Good points. He made good points on climate, even though he was, made his money with oil and coal. That's part of the reason why I don't trust him. But he had a pretty decent response to that. He's the only one that brought up black. He said black and brown, but back brought up any any issues with black people. He mentioned the environment, environmental issues when it comes to black and brown people. I mean, it's not what I want to hear. I want to hear more specifics, but he's the only one that even brought that up. Any issues concerning black people at all. So I give him a little bit of credit with that. Besides Biden saying that he got black support, okay, but what the fuck you gonna do for us? I don't Another story. I'm gonna get off that. I'm gonna get off that. All right. Biden, I thought, had a bad night. He stuttered through every sentence. I mean, I'm not perfect the way I talk either, but it's not just that he's stuttering through his sentences, it's the substance. Like, for me, I don't like what he's saying. It seemed like he unsure about his points. And Biden used to be really sharp. I dislike him. I don't like his policies. I think he's been wrong about most major issues. Or that might be too much, but he's been wrong about a lot of major issues. Um, Going back to the crime bill, bankruptcy bill, Libya, a whole bunch of stuff he was wrong on. So, but he was a sharp debater. In '08, he was a sharp debater. Even during the primaries, even though he got like negative three support, he was a good debater. He was a good debater in 2012. He drugged um, Ryan, Speaker Ryan, or was he wasn't Speaker at the time, Congressman Paul Ryan, destroyed him in that vice presidential debate. Destroyed him, and his decline, I mean, is very noticeable, very noticeable. And I have major concerns if he's the nominee. Buttigieg, fake as usual, and again, no direct questions about his issues in his hometown of South Bend. They rarely ask him about his situation with the police. Why did he fire the first black police chief when he was claiming racial discrimination within the department? And it turns out, yeah, he was right. So I dislike Buttigieg a lot. Um, Sometimes, every once in a while, he might make a decent point, but a lot of times he says absolutely nothing. Is what it is. All right. So, but I think his decline is good because for a while he was surging in Iowa and New Hampshire. He's coming back to earth a little bit, which is good because I think he would be absolute disaster as nominee. I don't think he can get the nomination anyway because he doesn't have enough black support. He have almost no black support, so he wouldn't get the nomination anyway. I did notice there was a lot of biased questions towards Bernie Sanders. The way they framed it was crazy. Like when Bernie Sanders said he didn't say that a woman couldn't be president, they turned right after he says that. The moderator asks, "So Elizabeth Warren, how did you feel when Bernie Sanders said that a woman couldn't be president?" It was just like people just laugh, like because she just disregard what he said. And like I said earlier, none of us know if he said it or not. So yeah, and that was just one example. They framed a lot of his questions almost as an attack, which was very biased. And we know that mainstream media Bernie Sanders is it's an interesting case, right? Because mainstream media absolutely have a major bias against Bernie, but the online progressive base almost he can almost do no wrong. Like they would defend him with anything. I'm not like that. Like I said, when I agree with him, I agree with him. I agree with him more than I disagree with him. I did have some. I hated his answer on reparations at the beginning of the campaign. He began a little bit better, but that definitely bothered me. But you know the progressive left defend him nonstop on that. But in the mainstream media, it's disgusting how biased they are against them. Like, just be fair, just be fair. If you're asking questions like that, you gotta ask questions like that to everybody. And they did ask other candidates challenging questions, but not in the matter and as not in bulk like they did Bernie. Healthcare debate was really nothing new. Everybody still got the same positions as before, so we really didn't learn anything about that. Bernie Sanders almost got the front runner treatment this time. Last time was Warren. Biden had it in the past. Um, so he got the front runner treatment because a poll came out that he was leading Iowa. So he got a lot of attacks. So I like the question that the moderator asked Pete about do black voters. They didn't ask him about police, but she did ask him, do black voters know him? Because he keeps saying that the reason why he don't got black support is that black voters don't know him. She asks, is the case that black voters know him and just don't like him? To me, that is the case, but of course, he didn't say that. Amy Klobuchar thought she had a shaky performance. She overtalks too much. She doesn't get to the point quick enough. She keeps saying everything is a pipe dream. Some things are, but the thing is, what you do is get what you can get done now. However, you don't end it. The goal should be to get certain policies. Like, is Medicare for all going to pass if Bernie Sanders get elected? Probably not, because I still don't think it's going to be enough support in Congress. But you get the best deal you can get, and you just don't say case closed. You keep fighting. You fight for more progressive members, and eventually you work up to get the policy you want. She just her just saying everything is a pipe dream. It's just like, okay, you got to inspire people more than that. That's not inspirational. Yes, you can be realistic, but you can push for some of these policy proposals because they not the policy proposals itself are not unrealistic. Right now, just the political will, so it's a fine line between that. Overall, I think with the debate, I thought Warren had a very good night. I thought Tom Steyer had a good night. I thought Biden was very shaky. I thought Bernie was okay. I thought he looked defensive at time because everybody was attacking him, including the moderators with the questions. But I think he had a decent night. I thought Buttigieg, like, I personally don't like him for being objective. I don't think he had a bad night, but he didn't have a good night. Amy Klobuchar, I thought she had a much better debate last debate. This time, like I said, she overtalked and really didn't get to the point fast enough. But that's just my thoughts on the debate. Let me know how you feel. Make sure you subscribe and share the video. Definitely trying to grow this channel. I'm creating a Facebook page for us to discuss. Definitely subscribe, share the video, like, do all that good stuff. I'm Amin Shah. Just say what I mean. Peace. Oh, I thought I turned it off. I'll try it again. Peace.